Varek had never liked Earth much, even less so since the war. Yet here he was, back on the planet that had taken his son from him. As one of the wealthiest aliens in the galaxy, he could afford the quiet, private corner of a cemetery in the hills, shielded from prying eyes and tourist drones. It was an indulgence, perhaps, but one of the few things he could still do for Carice. Clad in a dark, formal robe, Varek made his way through the winding paths, passing human gravestones marked with symbols he'd never bothered to learn. But when he turned the corner to Carice's plot, he stopped in his tracks. A human, barely an adult by the looks of it, sat cross-legged in front of the grave, carefully arranging small, vibrant flowers in a makeshift bouquet. The youth's hands were grimy, his clothes worn, and his face etched with both sadness and determination. He didn't seem to notice Varek's approach, focused entirely on the quiet ritual. "What are you doing?" Varek's voice was harsh, echoing through the stillness of the cemetery. The young man jumped, nearly toppling over as he scrambled to his feet, wide-eyed. "I am sorry, sir," he stammered, his voice thick with emotion and maybe a little fear. "I didn't mean any harm. I just—" Varek's gaze shifted to the flowers, then back to the human. "Why are you here?" The boy swallowed hard. "My name's Eli. Carice saved my life, sir, during the evacuation from New Bristol. I wanted to pay my respects. I've been coming here when I can, to say thanks." Varek's eyes narrowed as he studied the human, the very species he had often blamed for his son's death. The war had been brutal, leaving scars on both sides, and many had lost loved ones. But to find a human here, mourning Carice, it was unthinkable. "You knew my son?" he asked, his voice softer this time. Eli nodded, his gaze dropping back to the ground. "He was assigned to our shelter when the bombing started. I was only 14, and my sister was just a baby. He protected us. There was chaos, and he helped us escape. But he didn't make it." Varek's breath hitched, a reaction he hadn't expected. Carice had been assigned to a neutral aid mission, something the young soldier had insisted on despite Varek's wishes. The aid convoys were supposed to be safe zones, but nothing was safe in war. "Why?" Varek asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why did he do it?" Eli's gaze met Varek's, unwavering. "He told me that life wasn't just about who wins or loses, or who's right or wrong. He said it was about doing what was right, even if it was hard." The young man looked down again. He said that's what his father had taught him. Those words struck Varek like a punch to the gut. He had told Carice those very things, always emphasizing integrity and honor. The message had made its mark on his son, even if Varek had never truly realized it. Eli shifted, uneasy under the alien's intense stare. "I know I don't belong here, but I wanted to let him know that I remember him, and that he mattered." Varek stood there in silence, staring at the unassuming human boy with a mix of awe and sorrow. For years, he had wrestled with bitterness over Carice's death. Yet here was proof of his son's impact, tangible and alive, in the form of this young man. He took a step forward, looking at the flowers Eli had placed on the grave. They were local wildflowers, common and unassuming, yet arranged with care. It was a small gesture, but a sincere one. "Thank you, Eli," Varek finally said, his voice thick. "Your respect for my son, it means more than you know." Eli offered a tentative smile, and for a brief moment, Varek could see the faintest trace of Carice's spirit in the young man's determined gaze. It was a reminder that, while his son's body lay beneath the earth, his legacy lived on in the lives he had touched. Without another word, Varek reached into his cloak and produced a small, crystalline pendant. It shimmered faintly in the twilight, imbued with alien technology. "Take this," he said, placing it into Eli's hands. "It's a token of my gratitude. If you ever need help, find me. Carice would want you safe." Eli looked down at the pendant, a mix of gratitude and surprise on his face. "Thank you, sir. I won't forget." Varek gave a solemn nod. He turned to walk away, pausing only once to glance back at the grave, where Eli still stood, looking humbled but proud. As Varek walked away, he felt the weight of grief lessen, just a little. His son's legacy wasn't in wealth, or fame, or even vengeance. It was here, alive and quietly grateful, a human with a heart like Carice. And for the first time since his son's passing, Varek found peace.